Students ask me, do I really need to learn programming if I can vibe code just about anything these days? So the short answer to that is yes. Yes, you still need to learn programming. But the reason why is not exactly the same as it was before generative AI came along. So you've probably heard that AI makes mistakes, which is true. AI can generate code that's wrong in lots of interesting ways. So yes, if you know how to code, then you're in a better position to inspect and debug the code that AI gives you. And all that is true today. But the problem with that argument is that it depends too much on the current limitations of AI. Because as AI gets better at producing code, then the AI makes mistakes argument goes away. So the real answer as to why we still need to teach a new generation of programmers has to do with things like abstraction, agency, and responsibility and judgment. These four terms all build on each other, and they relate back to the question about why it's still important to learn about programming even now. So let's start with abstraction, because in the computer science world, abstraction means taking something complicated and putting a simpler layer on top of it so you can use it without having to deal with every layer of detail underneath. So basically, computing has always moved towards letting people tell machines what they want at higher and higher levels. So what does abstraction have to do with generative AI? Well, computer scientists have been creating abstraction layers over the complexity of computers since the 1940s, when a researcher named Kathleen Booth developed one of the earliest forms of what we now call assembly language. So instead of manually working with machine language, the ones and zeros, computer scientists covered those things so they could work in a slightly more human-readable abstraction layer that looked like this. And this allowed computer scientists to program computers faster and be less prone to errors. So that's abstraction. And like I said, that's nothing new. We've been creating more and more abstraction layers over the complexity of computers for a very long time. And each time that we do that, more and more people get to use it. So agency is the next thing we need to talk about, because in a nutshell, the more technical details we abstract away, the more people get to use it. And when more people get that power, we say they have more agency. So software does not always stay where you put it. So, even something as simple as a spreadsheet that you make for yourself can become something your whole department ends up relying on. Or how about a website? A simple website that you throw together with Squarespace can become the place where real users enter real information about themselves, potentially even personal or financial information, thinking that it's going to be safe and secure on the system that you vibe coded with an AI assistant. And once that happens, the standard changes, because now your work can affect other people. It may expose private data, it may make unsupervised decisions, and it may break in ways that you did not expect. So, the good enough part depends on the situation. So for private, reversible, low-risk tasks, good enough may be really good enough, but for something public, shared, or persistent, good enough has to mean something more. And that's where the higher level of abstraction gives you more agency, also gives you a greater amount of responsibility. So yeah, the more power you have to make computational things, the more responsible you are for what those things do. So my students wonder about their need to learn programming so that they can build systems that, who knows, maybe help them get a job someday. And that's the point right there, because we're talking about creating computational artifacts that other people will rely on. And by rely, I mean that people, other than yourself, can trust that it'll be safe, secure, accessible. Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about accessibility yet. and that it'll be reliable and maintainable enough. And that's a lot of responsibility. So how do you do that? Well, you have to develop a sense of judgment. And if you're going to work with generative AI for that, you need enough computational understanding to notice when the result seems suspicious regardless of the prompts that you write. You need to have enough judgment to avoid trusting the machine, even as these systems get better and better, because they can only work from the requirements and the context and the feedback that you give them, rather than automatically knowing what you meant or what you assumed would be obvious. And if the system fails, you saying that the AI wrote it is not going to be a very satisfying explanation. So learning programming helps you develop judgment about what a computer system is capable of doing or capable of screwing up. You can tell your favorite AI to build something that's safe and secure, but how do you know that it is? So backing up a bit, when we were talking about responsibility, you got to ask yourself, what's mine? Is this low risk? Is it just for myself? Are more people going to use this? And is my company planning to make $1 billion selling this to millions of users? And if there's a mistake in there, like a logic mistake, what's your liability? So here is the reframed answer to my students' question. In the age of generative AI, learning to program is still important. The role of learning programming has changed though, so you may spend less time manually writing every line of software. But learning program is still one disciplined way to understand what you're asking a machine to do, inspect what it gives you back, and govern how that behavior affects other people. And it helps you recognize when the AI has done exactly what you asked it to do while still missing what you meant. And that greater agency comes with greater responsibility. And greater responsibility requires the judgment to understand the system in front of you in terms of what it can do and what it cannot do, and what may happen when you release what you created to the world. So yeah, if you're here in college because you want to build things that other people will trust and rely on, then learn programming. Writing the code may be a smaller part of the job, but developing the judgment to use all this new power responsibly is becoming a much bigger part. And that, to me, is why learning programming still matters in the age of generative AI.